Chair Hart's having a technical issue. I am attempting to assist.
We are awaiting Chair Hart.
Hello, everyone.
Well, Chair Hart.
I don't know why it's not letting me in, but it's not.
We
can
see
hear
you.
now.
We see you.
Great. Is everybody ready? You're overdue.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my fault. Technical problem. Okay. I hereby call this meeting of the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission to order. This meeting is being recorded as well as streamed live for the public. Ms. Silbaugh, do we have a quorum today?
Yes, Chair, we have a quorum. Participating in the meeting today are yourself as the chair, Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke, and Commissioners Lobby, Conklin, DeBrule, and Rouse.
Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Now we will turn to our safety message from Emergency Management Specialist Richard David. Mr. David.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Particularly as we move into the holiday season, take steps to reduce the risk of fires. Only use extension cords that are properly rated and only use them as designed. Make sure that any power supplies you use or light displays are properly insulated and have the right certification markings. If you light candles, keep a close watch on them and blow them out if you leave the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David. Next item on our agenda relates to business that's specific to the commissioners. As I discussed during our last meeting, the vice chair position is vacant due to the departure of Mike Rush. I greatly appreciate Mr. Rush's service to the WMSC. I informed all commissioners that we would elect a new vice chair at this meeting and invited anyone who is interested in the position to contact me. Commissioner Lobby has indicated his interest. Are there any other commissioners who are interested in serving as vice chair? Hearing none. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners related to the election of a vice chair? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to nominate a vice chair?
I make a motion to nominate Mr. Lobby as vice chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrar Dyke. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of electing Commissioner Lobby as vice chair, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
All those opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. Ms.
Chair,
Silva,
the vote is unanimous. 6 in favor of electing Commissioner Lobby as vice chair.
congratulations, Vice Chair Lobby, on your new role.
Thank you, Chair Hart. It's really an honor to represent the Commonwealth of Virginia as a WMSC commissioner, and along with my colleagues, Commissioner Rouse and Commissioner Jennifer DeBrule, I think we make a good team. With our appointment as commissioners, we have responsibility to do our best to represent the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and certainly serving as vice chair, I think, would enhance my ability to represent the needs and wants of Virginia. So I want to thank you and the other commissioners for this appointment, and I'll try to do the best job I can.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lobby. You've made significant contributions to the WMSC since you've been on it, and we look forward to more from you in the future to help us do our job and to help the Metro Rail Safety Commission ensure that Metro Rail operates with continuously improving safety. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will now move on to the minutes from our last meeting. Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. The minutes of the October 24th, 2023 meeting were posted for review. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? I move approval of the October 24th minutes as circulated. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Conklin has seconded the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay.
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 Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Thank you for that vote. So it's again unanimous, 6 in favor. Oops, so sorry, I'm counting our alternates. So let me correct that. 5 in favor of approval of the minutes from the October 24th, 2023 meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silva. Next on the agenda, we provide an opportunity for public comments at each of our meetings. To ensure that we recognize all who wish to speak, we provided an opportunity for those who have joined the Zoom meeting to sign up in the chat box. If you wish to speak but did not sign in, please do so now. I'd also remind everyone, including those of you watching on YouTube, that you can always report any concerns through our website, wmsc.gov, through our social media channels, or by email. Mr. Smith, do we have anyone who has indicated that they would like to speak?
No, Chair Hart, there are no names in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. We will now continue on with our next agenda item, which is my remarks. Our meeting today includes updates on the WMSC's ongoing safety oversight activities and the actions that we take on a daily basis to ensure that Metro Rail upholds its safety commitments and strives to continuously improve the safety of its system. I want to thank the WMSC staff for their ongoing oversight work on behalf of the region across Metro Rail subject areas. I congratulate Metro Rail on its progress working with the Commission in addressing one of the items identified in the ongoing National Transportation Safety Board investigation by better aligning the wheel set assembly design specifications of the 7000 series rail cars with industry practice for similar rail cars. I also congratulate Metro Rail on the improvements it has made working also with the commission, excuse me, related to its work to institute automatic door operation on the Red Line. Metro Rail's progress to better align with industry standards and its safety certification process led to our concurrence last week that Metro Rail met its requirements for the use of automatic door operation on the Red Line. Ms. Samara Singhal will provide the details momentarily. Last but not least, I want to thank both Metro Rail and the WMSC staff for the opportunity 2 weeks ago for commissioners to visit the Metro's new integrated command and communication center in Alexandria. This provided 3 of us commissioners with an opportunity to see the physical changes that have been recently implemented for this control center environment and to get a much better appreciation of the challenges and complexity that Metro Rail faces every day. Ms. Samara Singhal, do you have any opening remarks?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Dr. Meyer was out for a few days, so I appreciate the opportunity today to provide this overview of the work that our dedicated team does each day to ensure that Metro Rail carries out its safety requirements. Last week, we were able to concur that Metro Rail had completed its safety certification requirements to utilize automatic door operation on the Red Line. This follows our feedback to Metro Rail on an ongoing basis that led to Metro Rail making significant process improvements for this project over the summer to better align with its safety requirements and industry best practices. Metro Rail focused its work on automatic door operations on the Red Line. Metro Rail work included developing a concept of operations for its automatic door operation system, testing and data analysis, procedural reviews, training for personnel, and certification of Red Line train operators. The work also included identifying and mitigating hazards, including those hazards communicated by the WMSC through mitigations designed to ensure automatic door operation is only used in the part of the system where it has been tested and verified, is only used when intended, and is only used by train operators who have been certified on automatic door operations. Automatic door operation is separate from automatic train operation, and Metro Rail's current focus is on automatic door operations. We continue our in-depth review of Metro Rail's safety certification work on its automatic door operation and automatic train operations. This is a project that we designated for in-depth review in August 2022 and have been overseeing Metro Rail's work on in various forms for many years. As a project designated for in-depth review, Metro Rail must receive our concurrence that it has properly carried out its safety certification process prior to utilizing these systems in passenger service. Also last week, Metro Rail completed wheelset replacement work on 8 7000 series rail cars. These cars now have wheelset assemblies that have higher interference fit and press tonnage requirements. This is Metro Rail's effort to address one of the issues identified during the National Transportation Safety Board investigation of the October 2021 Blue Line derailment, by better aligning the wheelset assembly design specifications of the 7000 series railcars with industry best practice, and then implementing the increased wheel and axle interference fit and press tonnage. Metro Rail is still working on other elements such as restraining rail study. Moving to the September 29th derailment on a bridge south of the Reagan National Airport Station, a WMSC team went to the derailment scene and coordinated with Metro Rail on the investigative response. Our investigations team continues to work with Metro Rail personnel on this investigation. This includes follow-ups on special checks Metro Rail conducted on the 2000 and 3000 series brake discs, Metro Rail's subsequent torque checks that have been added to regular periodic inspections have identified at least 2 repeat failures. This means the brake disc that was replaced had loose bolts at a subsequent periodic inspection. One possible cause of those specific failures is that the personnel replacing those discs may have torqued the new bolts in an improper order. To simplify, this could have led to some bolts holding more tightly than others, which would have been too loose when the car went into service. Metrorail informed the WMSC in response to our follow-up on this issue that it will implement a standardized crosstalking process into its procedures. Again, to simplify, this is a designated pattern that provides balance tightening around the brake disc. We have also been closely monitoring Metrorail's work related to roadway worker protection. Our roadway or wayside worker protection audit is underway now. Mr. Rattick will provide more information later in this meeting. Separately, our team observed Metrorail's latest full-scale exercise earlier this month. We observed that Metrorail has significantly improved its process to ensure roadway worker protection is properly implemented during these important drills. This is the second exercise demonstrating improved RWP practices or roadway worker protection practices during these drills since the WMSC identified real-world improper RWP during a drill at Wheaton Station earlier this year. We are continuing to follow up with Metrorail regarding the lead that Metrorail identified in emergency medical cabinets as part of the implementation of a corrective action plan to address a finding from the WMSC's Emergency Management and Fire and Life Safety Audit. We have established regular updates from the Metrorail related to following up sampling and Metrorail's overall response, and also have an internal WMSC working group on this issue. The WMSC has been party to the NTSB investigation into the October 2021 7000 series train derailment near Arlington Cemetery. We have participated in several investigation activities over the course of the last 2 years, while we continue to oversee the 7000 series railcar return to service through the orders the WMSC issued following this derailment. We anticipate the release of the report very soon by the NTSB and look forward to receiving it. Looking ahead to other items on the agenda today, the Finance and Operations Committee under Secretary Treasurer Farah Dyke's leadership will present the annual independent financial audit for your consideration. We are proud to again have a clean audit. Dr. Meyer had mentioned at the last meeting, the WMSC presented to the other state safety oversight agencies last month about the development of our risk-based inspections program. This presentation was part of the annual Federal Transit Administration's joint State Safety Oversight Agency and Rail Transit Agency workshop held in St. Louis. Several members of our team attended the event in person and others attended remotely. That concludes my remarks, Chair Hart. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Samarasinha. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Samarasinha?
I have a question, Chair Hart.
Yes, please, Commissioner Loudon.
I wanted to just explore for a second this action that Metrorail is taking to replace wheel sets and using a tighter interference fit. And you may not know the answer to this, but is NTSB on board with this? Have they approved it or concurred with this approach of handling the loose wheel issue?
You are right, Commissioner Lobby. I wouldn't be able to characterize NTSB's position on it. However, this wheel replacement program emerged from the 7000 series railcar orders that we issued back in 2021. And so as a result of safely returning the 7000 series railcars, this was the final progression in the wheels being brought up to industry practice. So I'm not able to characterize what NTSB's position is on this program, but we have reviewed all of the information, reviewed all their practices, observed the work underway, and provided no technical objection to the work that is underway presently under the wheel replacement program.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that clarification. I know NTSB doesn't tip their hat too often at what their thoughts are, but I was interested to know if they had any objections, or at least voiced any objections to this approach. But it sounds like in the absence of any statements that they're also on board. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Lobby, to my experience, where that would come out would be when the NTSB determines whether its recommendations have been followed or not, and this would be an example of something that would fall within the recommendations, and that would be the time when the NTSB would opine on whether its recommendation was satisfied.
Yeah, this is a strange situation where, there's some significant steps being taken before the report is out. And I just, I'm hoping that there won't be any surprises when the NTSB issues the reports and basically recommends another course of action other than what Washington Metro is doing right now. So I was just interested in that, and certainly NTSB lives in the same city that we live in. Their headquarters is here in Washington, and I'm sure they're aware of what's going on. And in the absence of any comments on this approach, I would assume that their final report will reflect the same acknowledgement that this is an appropriate action to take.
And normally, based again on my experience at the NTSB, the reports typically take about a year or so anyway. So it's not uncommon that people take corrective measures during that year while the report is still underway. And normally what they do when that happens is coordinate with the NTSB in the moment to make sure that they're not going down the wrong track, so to speak.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions from the
Chair
commission?
Hart, I also have a question.
Yes, please.
And maybe you can speak to it today. Maybe it's something for a future meeting, but it's getting the wheel sets up to the correct spec is good. But can you speak to any QA/QC efforts to make sure that wheel pressing is being done correctly every time for every wheel set?
That is part of the procedure that is being used to conduct the work of the wheel replacement program, where there is a independent inspector on site conducting the quality assurance checks that there are various hold points at which point these checks are performed throughout the process of conducting the wheel assembly. So that is underway. And if I may add, Commissioner Rouse, in addition to that, we are staying updated on the wheel pressing program, getting information and data on what wheel pressing is happening, how many cars, axles and trucks are undergoing the wheel pressing successfully, and how many cars are being released. And we have ongoing interactions with Metro based on the data and based on the trends that we are seeing in terms of whether there are any emerging trends in terms of all of the practices that bring about wheels being pressed at the higher interference fit with a higher press tonnage on these axles. So there is work underway on multiple fronts internally at Metro, as well as our oversight through the data that we have access to and that we receive from Metro. So I hope I answered that question for you satisfactorily.
Yeah, on the independent checks, or well, I should say the QA/QC checks that you mentioned, are they being done by an independent organization, or are they by WMATA internal?
WMATA internal inspectors, yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Rouse. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners for Ms. Samarasingham? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to our next agenda item, which is audits, with an update from Deputy Chief Operating Officer Davis Raddick. Mr. Raddick?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Since our last meeting, we transmitted the draft report to WMATA for our audit of Metrorail's automatic train control and signals program. Metrorail's comments on the draft report arrived yesterday. As always, we are carefully reviewing Metrorail's response to determine whether any adjustments are needed. When this work is complete, we will issue a final report. We are developing the draft reports for our audit of Metrorail's power systems programs and our audit of Metrorail's revenue vehicles or railcar programs. We expect to transmit the draft of the power systems audit to Metrorail in coming weeks for a 30-day review period. This audit identified 3 open corrective action plans from the last power audit in 2021, which required modifications in order to fully address identified safety issues. The preliminary modifications were provided to Metrorail at the exit conference, and we then provided Metrorail with an opportunity to provide any additional information. The WMSC then directed the CAP modifications. Metrorail developed and submitted the revisions, and following feedback and adjustment, Metrorail is now implementing its revised corrective action plans. These revisions ensure that these CAPs include additional evidence of completion or are expanded to include additional areas that were not included in the scope of the WMSC's high voltage and traction power audit that was issued in 2021. Ms. Rhodes will provide further details in a few minutes. We held an exit conference with Metrorail for the revenue vehicle or railcar audit on November 30th. In accordance with our program standard, at the exit conference for each audit, we share with Metrorail preliminary findings as developed to that point, any remaining documents that may be pending submission from Metrorail, and the general expected timeline for draft and final reports. These may shift based on continuing document review and consideration. Our audits assess Metrorail against the relevant criteria, such as the requirements of Metrorail's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, requirements specified in other Metrorail documents such as SOPs, manuals, orders, and also regulatory requirements. These audits cover all aspects of Metro's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan over a 3-year period and are designed to proactively identify safety issues. We take steps to ensure Metrorail personnel feel free to speak openly and transparently with us during each interaction, as this leads to the greatest opportunity for accurate and meaningful recognition of positive practices or areas for improvement. We are also working on our roadway or wayside worker protection audit. As with each audit we conduct, this in-depth audit builds on items identified in safety event investigations, inspections, and other oversight activities. We began on-site observations for the RWP audit last week, following the entrance conference, and are conducting interviews this week. During each audit, we communicate safety issues identified during on-site activities to Metrorail personnel. We have reviewed and are continuing to review Metrorail documents and data, as well as our past inspection reports and investigations. After we complete on-site activities this week and review follow-up documents, the team will progress toward an exit conference and draft and final report thereafter. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Raddick. Are there any questions from the commissioners for Mr. Raddick? Okay, seeing none, we will now take up the next agenda item, which is corrective action plans, with an update from Ms. Ashley Rhodes. Ms. Rhodes?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Since the last public meeting, we have closed 10 CAPs and approved 4 new CAPs for implementation. We also approved modifications to 3 open CAPs that Mr. Raddick mentioned related to the power audit. When Metrorail develops corrective action plans to address the safety deficiencies identified by WMSC findings and recommendations, Metrorail submits these plans to the WMSC for review and approval. After Metrorail submits acceptable CAP proposals that will address the safety deficiency and receives WMSC's approval, Metrorail is responsible for implementing its corrective action plans on the schedule set forth in the CAP. Metrorail submits records of each actionable item in each CAP after each step is completed. Metrorail's implementation of each of these CAPs improves the safety of the system for riders and workers. The 4 new CAPs approved for implementation since your last meeting address a finding and 3 recommendations from the roadway maintenance machine audit issued on October 18th. C0244 will address the finding that Metrorail is not reviewing RMM-related procedures as required. C0246, C0248, and C0250 address 3 of the recommendations from the RMM audit. These are that Metrorail can improve safety by documenting and formalizing a process for starting and checking equipment on a regular basis that is not being used. Metrorail has not implemented a documented process for the decommissioning of RMMs, including ensuring vehicles being disposed of are no longer needed and are safely disposed of. And Metrorail can improve safety through effective interdepartmental coordination to fully utilize available safety data, technology, and contracts. The 3 CAP modifications approved since your last meeting are modifications that we directed Metrorail to develop based on our evaluations during the recent power audit. Each of these CAPs was open at the time of the audit. The modifications address items that were not in the scope of the high voltage power audit issued in 2021, such as low voltage personnel, as well as additional actionable items that are needed to demonstrate implementation and mitigation of the safety issues. C0154 addresses the need for employees to be trained on the equipment they are assigned to work on. Metrorail has not incorporated the specific training needed to address differences among equipment manufacturers and models as part of the original actionable items, leaving personnel without the necessary skills and experience. The modification addresses this issue. CAP C0155 relates to hazard identification and mitigation. The modification incorporates low voltage power groups. This also aligns with Metrorail's current organizational structure. The modification also includes additional safety management system training and an assessment of the effectiveness of that training. C0157 addresses the need for the presence of up-to-date as-built schematics in all traction power rooms. Our CAP oversight and our audit work showed Metrorail was beginning to work on this issue, but that many locations were still missing accurate and current drawings. The modification ensures all rooms are captured and addressed. Even after a CAP is closed, the WMSC monitors Metrorail's actions on an ongoing basis through our audit, inspection, and other oversight activities. Overall, Metrorail currently has 93 open CAPs that it is in the process of implementing. During that implementation, the WMSC reviews information to verify progress. This includes reviewing items provided by Metrorail and other oversight activities. Examples of our ongoing oversight of Metrorail CAP implementation include our oversight of CAP C0171. This CAP addresses our emergency management and fire and life safety audit, finding that emergency equipment in station medical cabinets is expired and covered in dirt. Due to the WMSC's finding, Metrorail developed a corrective action plan. During implementation of this CAP, Metrorail evaluated the dirt and dust in these cabinets and determined that it contained lead. As Ms. Samara Singh summarized earlier, we are continuing to follow up with Metrorail. We are monitoring Metrorail's activities related to the equipment kept in the cabinets and the replacement equipment Metrorail is making available to local first responders elsewhere in stations. We are also monitoring Metrorail's activities related to the assessment and determination of any other areas that may have lead requiring mitigations. We have established regular updates from Metrorail related to follow-up sampling and Metrorail's overall response, and also have an internal WMSC working group on this issue. As another example of our proactive CAP oversight, we have been actively monitoring Metrorail's progress on implementing physical characteristics training as required under CAP C0183. Our proactive oversight and focus has helped ensure Metrorail is on track toward meeting its current deadlines. As I mentioned, the WMSC has closed 10 CAPs since the last public meeting. 2 closed CAPs relate to the Rail Operations Control Center audit issued in 2020. C0051 addressed the finding that Metrorail was not recording all critical ROC communications, limiting the lessons that can be learned from safety events. Metrorail reviewed its systems and capabilities, conducted a gap analysis, and implemented deliverables to address the gaps. Metrorail upgraded recording systems to ensure there was a proper physical hardware, such as adequate microphones, and that there was necessary backed support, such as backup servers. Our oversight extended to ensuring that Metrorail understood this requirement carried forward into its new facility. This important recording capability ensures that personnel in the Metro Integrated Command and Control Center, personnel in Metrorail's safety and quality assurance units, and personnel at the WMSC can maintain an accurate understanding. This includes day-to-day oversight activities that provide proactive opportunities for positive reinforcement or coaching, and investigative activities necessary for Metrorail to develop effective corrective actions to reduce the risk of recurrence of a safety event. CAP C0052 addressed the lack of consistent, clear, concise, immediate, and reliable Metrorail communication process for safety critical information between Metrorail personnel and the fire liaison. Metrorail updated or created SOPs and created a fire liaison policy handbook. Metrorail also implemented and improved use of electronic information sharing systems, such as a notification system and intranet page. Metrorail developed and implemented CAP C0163 to address the emergency management and fire and life safety audit finding that Metrorail created and implemented an incident management official without documented training, responsibilities, communication or coordination, and without adequate staffing to ensure other emergency management and preparedness activities were not interrupted. Metrorail later renamed the position the Mission Assurance Coordinator. As part of the corrective action taken, Metrorail defined the position's role and responsibility and developed associated processes and procedures. Metrorail developed training requirements and prerequisites for training completion. Metrorail also communicated information about the position to other personnel. Metrorail has now assigned personnel to carry out the training activities for other groups that were not being conducted at the time of the WMSC's audit. To address findings from the Fitness for Duty audit issued in 2021, Metrorail developed and implemented CAPs C0124 and C0125. C0124 addressed that many follow-up and random drug and alcohol tests required by Metrorail policy and federal regulation were not completed, with no documented reason for why the tests were missed. As corrective actions, Metrorail created a testing process that incorporated federal record-keeping requirements and documenting when a specimen cannot be collected. Initially, Metrorail submitted quarterly reports covering periods in 2022 that did not demonstrate compliance. Following feedback from the WMSC, Metrorail improved communication to managers and others regarding their requirements, involved executive leadership, and subsequently improved compliance with this safety requirement. This included providing records showing 100% compliance for May and June of this year. C0125 addressed Metrorail's lack of written criteria for post-incident testing and inconsistent implementation of post-event testing. Metrorail developed a post-event testing policy instruction and updated other procedures and processes to ensure internal notification of events. Metrorail provided records demonstrating the events were being captured in accordance with the procedure. Metrorail developed C0191 to address a finding from the rail operations audit issued in 2022 that some rail transportation QA/QC audits contained conclusions that did not match actual conditions. The audit also found that work instructions were incomplete and did not specify requirements to remove personnel from service. These QA/QC audits are intended to be part of Metrorail's internal oversight of compliance with Metrorail policies and procedures by personnel such as train operators. This includes auditing items such as safe train movement in accordance with safety rules and compliance with safety training requirements. The audits can include field observations and document or data review. As part of this CAP, Metrorail created a Quality Control Manager position. This position is conducting spot checks of these audits at least twice per month. Metrorail provided records showing the spot checks of the audits were occurring. Metrorail also updated SOPs to specify criteria for removing personnel from service when observed by the auditors to be acting outside of Metrorail's rules and procedures. To address a finding from the automatic train control, signals, and signal machines audit issued in 2021 regarding turnover, vacancies, and experience levels of ATC personnel, Metrorail developed and implemented CAP C0113. As part of this CAP, Metrorail revised its ATC maintenance mechanic job description, developed a recruitment strategy, developed and implemented an apprentice program, and provided records of the first class of that program. 5 of the 6 initial students graduated from the program. We congratulate those students. In addition, Metrorail identified minimum training requirements and updated its training matrix, developed and submitted training schedules, and submitted training records. 2 closed CAPs address items from the railcar audit issued in 2021. C0142 addressed development of a systematic process to ensure mechanics and engineers are trained for the specific tasks they are assigned to perform. Metrorail conducted an assessment, updated and expanded its training matrix to include the required training for vehicle engineers and technicians, and developed a process to ensure these personnel complete required training. This also includes training records checked at least twice per year by supervisors. Metrorail provided current training records to demonstrate the process. C0147 addresses that part numbers were not consistently entered in work orders for 7000 series railcars. Metrorail conducted an analysis that identified missing component codes for field replaceable parts. Metrorail has revised its car maintenance work order audit form to include validation of component codes in the work orders. Finally, CAP C0234 addressed a recommendation from the track maintenance audit issued in 2022. The WMSC recommended that Metrorail conduct lifecycle monitoring of reserve rail components stored in maintenance yards. Metrorail determined requirements for materials meeting the appropriate standards and shelf life policies. Metrorail developed a process to prevent parts that are no longer usable from being issued for installation. Metrorail provided proof that Track and Structures employees received this new procedure. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Rhodes?
Chair Hart, I have a real quick question.
Yes, please.
The one you just mentioned, 0234, I think it was, for track
Correct.
material. Is there a similar one for rail vehicle material for spare parts and anything with a life associated with it that has to have a shelf life removed out of service?
Sharmila, I see you unmuted. Would you like to respond?
Commissioner Rouse, can you give us a few days to check on that and get that information back to you and the rest of the commissioners specifically?
Sure. I'm just curious because I know I run into it a lot with locomotives and other, rail equipment. It sits there, nobody knows it's there, and especially bearings and things of that nature can be sitting for a long time and not being used. It's not always good.
We will get that response to all the commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Rouse. Are there any other questions from any other commissioners for Ms. Rhodes? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to our next agenda item, which is an update on some of the WMSC's latest activities overseeing Metro Rail's safety certification process. Ms. Samara Singha?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Metrorail's safety certification process is a critical element of Metrorail's safety management system. Identifying and understanding failure modes or hazards and proactively mitigating the likelihood and severity of those hazards in a systematic way, as documented in Metrorail's own policy and procedures, provides for the overall safety of the Metrorail system. Metrorail implements its safety certification program. We, the WMSC, oversees Metrorail's work through field observations, document and data review, and regular meetings with Metrorail, as well as observing the discussions among Metrorail safety certification committees and working groups. Metrorail is required to carry out this work for each of its projects that meet its criteria for safety certification. In accordance with our program standard, we designate specific projects for the WMSC's in-depth review of Metrorail safety certification activities. For these projects, Metrorail may not activate the asset or system into service until the WMSC concurs that Metrorail has conducted its safety certification process, including hazard identification and any mitigations or corrective actions. Projects currently under our in-depth review include Metrorail's new 8000 series rail cars, Metrorail's automated wayside inspection system, and Metrorail's work related to the automatic train operation and automatic door operation projects. We monitor Metrorail safety certification working groups, documentation, and other activities. As I mentioned earlier, we have been overseeing Metrorail's work related to automatic train operation and automatic door operation for several years. Metrorail is currently working specifically on automatic door operation efforts. Automatic door operation is separate from automatic train operation, and Metrorail safety certification work on automatic door operation is specific to that system. It does not include automatic train operation. We have conducted and observed weekly meetings, observed Metrorail field activities, and have been in continuous contact with Metrorail's project team and other personnel on these two projects. Metrorail made adjustments to its work over the last several months, and Metrorail has specifically focused on automatic door operations with a setting where the doors would open automatically on the correct side when a train properly berths in a station, and the train operator would then manually close the doors by pressing the door close button when boarding is complete. Metrorail has conducted testing and other activities such as training for specific personnel. Metrorail completed the safety certification steps required to utilize automatic door operation in passenger service on the Red Line, leading to our concurrence last week with Metrorail's temporary use notice for the use of automatic doors on the Red Line. Our concurrence was required because this project is under our in-depth review. This temporary use notice includes mitigations that Metrorail has determined it must carry out, such as ensuring trains are only in automatic door operation on the Red Line, that these trains are only operated by operators trained and certified on automatic door operations, and that switches are properly sealed. Sealing switches is a safety mitigation that provides a level of assurance that critical switches are not manipulated accidentally or without permission. These seals are also intended to provide a verification regarding whether the switch has remained in the same position throughout the train's operation. We have explained the importance of this safety mitigation to Metrorail managers. We continue our work on other safety certification oversight. This includes observations of Metrorail's wheel replacement program and monitoring of Metrorail's ongoing work on potential wayside inspection systems. Thank you, and that completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Samara Singha. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Samara Singha?
I had a quick question, Chair Hart. I was curious whether there have been any incidents since the automatic door operation has commenced on the red line that give the staff any concerns about WMATA's management of that program and whether or not there's a trajectory to expand the implementation under the temporary approval, or if we're looking to wait until we give a permanent approval to expand operations to other elements of the system. Thank you.
Commissioner Conklin, so yes, we are conducting independent monitoring activities to ensure all those mitigations that I just mentioned are being carried out throughout red line operations in automatic door operations. There was one instance last week that Metro Rail has, through its own monitoring activities, learned that there was a train that was operating on the red line with automatic door operation feature switched on, which had left the red line and had found itself on the blue line. When Metro Rail discovered this, they had a car maintenance employee meet that train at the National Airport station and appropriately conducted the steps to seal the door mode selector switch in the manual mode. And so when we talk about switches in this context, we are talking about the door mode selector switch that is present on each of the trains and the train cars. And this gives the ability for the train operator to choose between automatic door open and manual door open. So this particular train, since it was originally on the red line, had it set at auto manual, automatic door open, manual door close. And instead of it being sealed in manual before it left the red line, this had gone into the blue line with the switch in auto manual. So when Metro Rail discovered this, they did notify the WMSC and then also indicated to us the step that they had taken immediately when they discovered this issue to correct it. Having said that, we are currently this week working on understanding where exactly the failure occurred in order for this train to have within parentheses, escaped the red line and gone into a line that is currently not available for for automatic door operations. So that's the answer to your first question. The next question you asked is whether there is any progression of work to expand automatic door operations to the rest of the system. And that is yes. Metro Rail is working towards conducting similar work activities to include safety certification, to conduct testing of the system, just like they did on the red line, to conduct analysis of those test results, to train the personnel who will be involved in this activity on the rest of the system, and making sure all procedures and rules are updated so that the personnel who are impacted know exactly how to perform their duties in this new environment of automatic door operations. So more work is yet to be done. We are looking forward to that information arising through our regular interactions with Metro Rail on automatic door operations, and we look forward to that work continuing into next year. I hope that I answered your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Conklin, for the question. Are there any questions from the other commissioners for Ms. Marcingham? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to safety event investigations. Mr. Quigley, I understand you have updates on ongoing investigations and 3 reports to present for our consideration today. We will hear presentations of all the reports, then consider a single motion on all the reports. If any commissioner wishes to remove a report from the group that we will consider in a single vote, please indicate that at the end of the presentation of that report. Mr. Quigley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Regarding ongoing investigations, Metro Rail is progressing its restraining rail study that is related to the NTSB investigation into the 2021 Blue Line derailment. Metrorail expects to complete this study in the next few months. This study is evaluating Metrorail's track systems design, including the design requirements related to its restraining rails. Restraining rails adjust the wheel-rail interaction and associated forces. Metrorail has restraining rails at locations on the main line and in rail yards. Metrorail's other study related to the derailment investigation regarding frogs at switches requires additional time for procurement and then extended field testing. This relates to the forces that can be imparted as well as the durability of the frogs. Each of these studies is intended to better understand and quantify information on track interactions and forces at specific locations in the Metrorail system. When the NTSB issues a final report on the accident investigation, the WMSC will review the report in accordance with our program standard. Related to the September 29th derailment near National Airport, we continue to follow up with Metrorail regarding brake discs and bolts on the 2000 and 3000 series rail cars. Some cars that passed initial special checks have been identified in subsequent periodic inspections as requiring bolt replacements, including at least 2 wheels that had brake discs replaced due to failing the special checks after the derailment. One potential cause of this reoccurrence is that Metrorail does not require personnel to cross-torque bolts as they are installed. This is the process of torquing bolts in a crisscross pattern to provide for balanced and uniform torquing, rather than working around in a circle, which can leave some bolts looser than others. Metrorail has told the WMSC it is now updating procedures to include standardized cross-torquing. Metrorail will continue torque checks on these bolts during periodic inspections. After investigative work concludes, there will be a final investigation report. Our oversight is contributing to Metrorail identifying, acting upon, and sending notices intended to prevent train operators operating above Metrorail's maximum allowable speed. Metrorail's rules limit speeds to 59 miles per hour in most of the system and 65 miles per hour on parts of the Green Line. Due to our oversight, Metrorail is now acting upon available data regarding trains traveling above the speed specified in Metrorail's safety rules. This has led to several safety event notifications over the last few weeks in accordance with our program standard. Our investigations team is examining Metrorail's safety protections against the removal of speed restrictions without authorization. The WMSC became aware of a speed restriction improperly removed from an area where track work had just been completed based on a phone call that did not include any identification or confirmation of who was calling. The speed restriction was in place to ensure the completed work had the necessary time without being meaningfully disturbed so that it remained effective. We also are investigating reported red signal overruns, including one outside Spring Hill Station on the Silver Line, November 25th, and another in October near LaFont Plaza. We are investigating an improper movement last month near Huntington Station. In that event, the train operator moved through a switch that was clamped in the wrong direction, moving toward another train. The investigation includes an examination of the risk of fatigue for that terminal supervisor who had clamped the switch. We are investigating a November 9th collision in the New Carrollton rail yard. The rail car leaning due in part to improper maintenance of a leveling valve. The investigation is also evaluating the beam that was struck. It supports a roof over the yard platform. Moving to the first investigation report you are considering today, investigation Whiskey 0250 relates to a collision at Gallery Place, Chinatown Station on May 12, 2023. The train operator was able to stop the train, leading to only slight contact with a person who had intentionally entered the roadway. The train operator was appropriately focused on their duties and reacted in the necessary manner to preserve the life of the person on the roadway. The train operator had entered the station at 37 miles per hour, below Metrorail's 40-mile-an-hour maximum station entry speed. Metrorail established that speed as part of a corrective action plan to address WMSC's findings related to station overruns. The train operator saw the person on the roadway and applied emergency braking by releasing the dead man control. The train stopped 87 feet later. The train operator reported the emergency within approximately 3 minutes. Because the person was able to get up and leave the roadway on their own, the train operator believed the person had not actually been struck by the train. Metro Transit Police Department personnel later found the person outside the station who said they had been bumped by the train. This was supported by other evidence. The person was taken to a hospital. Thank you. That completes our report on investigation Whiskey 0250.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Are there any questions from the commissioners for Mr. Quigley?
I have a couple of questions, Chair Hart.
Yes, Commissioner Lowry.
Mr. Quigley, in reading this report, it indicated that the radio rail traffic controller asked the train operator if he was able to continue operating the train. And I think in the Metro report, it says that he was asked several times. He said, yes, he could. Is this an appropriate action? And the reason I asked this is he was taken out of service, I think 6 stations later and sent for drug testing. But after an incident like this, is it appropriate to leave the operator, in service and do the drug test later after a near miss like this?
I think what they should have done is immediately dispatch the supervisor to remove that operator from service and take them down for the drug and alcohol test. Like you said, they allowed this operator to continue since they said they were able to, and further down the line where they were intercepted by a supervisor. Should have been done earlier, yes, but the intent was to remove that individual when the supervisor was able to intercept the train.
Okay, yeah, I think that's an important point, because someone who's involved in one of these incidents may not be in the best position to determine whether they're able to continue or not. And I know that the operator did not think that he struck the individual, but there had to be some adrenaline involved in this after such a close call. So I would have expected that the operator be taken immediately out of service, and if drug tests are required, drug tests are required. But someone that's involved in something like that should probably go off duty immediately.
Absolutely.
Can I ask one other question? And this has to do with your previous presentation. The brake disc that was lost, I believe, at Reagan National Station. Did that brake disc that was lost, were the fasteners broken, or were they just lost? Do you remember?
Let me see if I can ask Mr. Dorenzo to discuss that. John, are you available?
Yes, Chairman Lobby, the brake disc bolts were broken.
They were broken. Okay. And the reason I bring this up is years ago I was involved in an investigation of bus wheel losses, and during the wheel losses, the studs were all broken, and we discovered that it was not due to the cross torquing, but it was due to over torquing the bolts. They still held, but they were basically torqued beyond their elastic limit, and then later on they broke or came loose. So the fact that you have broken bolts, whether they broke because the disc was loose, or whether they broke because they had been stretched too far and over torqued, I think that's something to consider in your investigation. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobby. Are there any additional questions for Mr. Quigley at this point?
I had a question regarding the overspeed.
Yes, please.
Events. Is there any practical reason why the trains need to be able to operate beyond the allowable speed? Could the speeds be governed, or is there a reason why there's a condition why they need to go faster than 59 miles per hour.
They could be governed, sir. But Shamel, do we know who can answer that question? Maybe Manny about why it's set like that, the ATC system.
I cannot answer it other than to say that there are two different speeds that the train operator encounters when they're operating in any part of the system. One is called the regulated speed, one is called the limiting speed. And in highway parlance, limiting speed is the design speed. And so there is the ability for Metro personnel to exceed the regulated speed and go up to the limiting speed. And they will not be prevented from operating in between those speeds up until they hit that limiting speed. And so this is an area that we are working on as part of our automatic train operation oversight activities as Metro works on doing the work on getting ready to safety certify that the system is ready for automatic train operations. This is an area on the speeds in general and how that is governed in the system that we are working on understanding the metrics or the basis for the various assigned speeds for various parts of the system and how those things govern actual train operation. So there is much more information that we need in order to answer that question, Commissioner Conklin, and we will work on getting that to you and the commissioners as we get the answers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Conklin. Are there any other questions for Mr. Quigley?
Yes, Gerhard, I have just a question on the signal overruns as well. Do we have any statistics for year end for how many we've seen of those or any other operating practice type issues as related to train operations?
For red signal overruns and like improper movements, I don't have that right now. I can get that to you as soon as we're done this meeting if you would like. Yeah.
That'd be great. I think, in the context of when we talk about these incidents, I think it's important to see where we're headed. Are we trending anywhere we want to be trending? Is it the same? Because these particular types of accidents or incidents, I should say, concern me more than others, right? And they're ones that can be controlled if you have the right process and procedures. And so I want to make sure what's happening and what's being done is actually having an effect.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Rouse. Any other questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Quigley? Okay, seeing none. We had two reports that the commissioners received for consideration via written vote, but one commissioner requested that they be considered at a public meeting, so they're being presented today. Mr. Quigley, would you present the first of these two reports?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0248 relates to a serious Metrorail employee injury at Congress Heights Station, April 23rd, 2023. A rail transportation supervisor was hurt after deliberately exiting a Green Line train from the rear bulkhead door, contrary to Metrorail safety procedure. The rail supervisor sustained serious injuries. The rail supervisor's accounts of the event after the fact conflicted with each other and conflicted with the other investigative information. The rail supervisor had entered what was the leading cab of a southbound train toward Branch Avenue station without communicating with the Rail Operations Control Center as required by Metrorail rules. When the train reached the end of the line, the rail supervisor and the train operator remained in the cab. About 10 minutes later, this became the trailing cab of the train for a northbound trip toward Greenbelt Station. A different operator was operating that trip from the other end of the train. When the train reached Congress Heights Station, the rail supervisor, who was in the trailing cab of the train with the original operator, opened the bulkhead door at the rear of the train. This is the door at the very end of the car, not a door that passengers use to get on or off the train. The rail supervisor fell to the roadway while trying to exit from the bulkhead door without permission or protection. The operator who was in the cab with the supervisor did not report the event. Riders on the platform helped the rail supervisor and the rail supervisor later reported an emergency on the radio. The supervisor did not initially respond to a request for identification. The supervisor then contacted the control center by phone. Rail Operations Control Center personnel responded appropriately by de-energizing third rail power and calling for DC fire and EMS response. The rail supervisor was taken for treatment of shoulder and knee injuries. This event included several instances of noncompliance with Metrorail safety rules and procedures. Metrorail is progressing work on CAP C0181, designed to address the WMSC's 2022 rail operations audit, finding that elements of the Metrorail have a culture that accepts noncompliance with written operational rules, instructions, and manuals. Metrorail's estimated completion date is October 2024. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Quigley?
I have some questions, Chair Hart.
Yes, please, Commissioner Lobby.
This is a very interesting accident where we have a rail supervisor who's disregarded several requirements and disregarded them dramatically. And this is a rail supervisor who I assume is responsible for the operators themselves and making sure that the operators follow the rules and procedures. Is that accurate, Mr. Quigley?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, so the supervisor, he entered the cab without advising the rock. He opened the bulkhead door. He attempted to climb down to the roadway without permission, without having any protection, which is a roadway worker issue. And then after he fell and injured himself, he reported to the rock that he fell from the platform. And then after that, he stated that he fell from the door while he was securing an exterior intercar barrier, which Metro confirmed there was no problem with the intercar barrier. So we look at all this, and then when reading the report for the corrective action, I look at it, says Metro Rail is requiring the rail supervisor to attend refresher training on safety rules and rules related to roadway worker protection. Mr. Quigley, does this seem to you to be an appropriate level of response to such a dramatic departure from the rules, especially in an organization where we're trying to build safety culture?
It's tough for me to answer that, sir. I will say that we reached out to Metro Rail today to just kind of figure out, again, update on the supervisor who returned to work recently. We were told that they received a 5-day suspension along with this retraining. The only thing I can really add is I think we have seen supervisors demoted for less. And I think this isn't really consistent with, how they normally handle individuals and safety events and the total disregard of safety rules and policies. So 5-day suspension is what Metro came up with. And like I said, we've seen all different types of disciplinary actions from, all over the spectrum. So I really can't answer that directly if it's fair. It's not my call.
Thank you for that. I know it's not our role to assess discipline, but again, in an organization that's trying to build safety culture, when the supervisors who are responsible for making sure that the working men and women are complying with the requirements, when they totally disregard it, to me, it's a real concern. And just to see that, and yes, there was a 5-day suspension apparently, but to see a supervisor like this that is just going to be retrained and put back in service in the same role, I think that's a little bit disturbing. And I would ask that Metro, take a look at these situations and consider, if these folks that have violated these rules are if it's appropriate to put them back in the same positions. I know it's not our issue to do discipline, but this is something that Metro needs to look at and consider. Thank you.
Understood.
I would like to chime in on Commissioner Laube to say, it seems to me they need to also send a very strong signal about the importance of telling the truth, as opposed to the several mistruths that came out in this investigation tonight. It seems to me there's just a very light slap on the wrist for these several mistruths, and I think they need to send a much stronger signal about not telling the truth. I mean, you talk about the foundation of safety culture. Certainly telling the truth is foundational to a strong safety culture.
And certainly I'm not convinced that this operator, or sorry, this supervisor did not already understand all the requirements. And to me, that means that retraining him on something that he already knows is kind of a waste of time.
Any other comments regarding this report from any of the other commissioners?
Yes, Chair, I'm going to just echo what you and Mr. Commissioner Laube have said, especially for people in position of authority, right? It has a significant effect on the rest of the people working. And so and again, that's maybe there, we don't know all the details, but I think it's certainly something we need to continue to look at. And if there's some authority that we have and it's situations where WMATA themselves may be limited in what they can do, then it may be something we need to explore and how we better create the culture that needs to be there for not only the riding public, but also other employees who are coming to work every day, doing the right thing and doing their job. See something like this is really disheartening for them as well. And it just flows throughout the organization. So, and I hope if nothing else, people see this and realize that, you know, your actions are going to reflect not only on that individual, but on the organization, and they'll be seen outside of just, you know, what it's been for the past, 30, 40 years. It's important, and everybody's actions are important, especially when you're in a safety critical role or you're in a supervisory role.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Rouse. And Ms. Silva, I would like to ask your thoughts on is the appropriateness of us returning this report to Metro for reconsideration of the sanction and see whether it was appropriate under the circumstances.
So that certainly is an option. I think those might be two different things, though. Again, there is the role of the commission related to the safety sensitive or the safety nature and the outcome versus a disciplinary measure. So help me understand which you would like some more information.
I'm just thinking that it does not show, to me, very strong response to what is very undesirable action, especially as we've heard already from a person in a safety sensitive position and a supervisor. And I'm just wondering, what is the best way for us to send that signal that this needs to be revisited with a look to whether that sanction is appropriate?
And so I will look to my colleagues as well with Sharmila and Adam, because I think there is a distinction between the investigative process, which is what this report is reflecting for the commissioner's vote, versus additional action that maybe would be reflected outside of this investigative report anyway.
And that is correct. And that is a distinction we have drawn on previous investigations that have had similar conclusions, commissioners and Chair Hart. And so adopting this investigation does not preclude any further consideration of additional actions, oversight actions that the WMSC might consider appropriate to take on this matter in the future. So I would recommend that you uncouple the two, handle the adoption of this investigation if you choose that is the correct thing to do today, and then handling the the safety sensitive duties that this individual performs in the future, and considering whether that's an appropriate thing to stand as a completely separate issue.
I'm good with the concept of decoupling.
Chair Hart, I'm wondering, again, I have no issue with decoupling, and I'm sensitive to the issue of safety-related guidance versus disciplinary action. But I'm wondering, Mr. Quigley, does WMATA have some standardized discipline guidelines for different types of violations? Are you aware of that or not? I'm not personally.
No, I'm not familiar with like the supervisors. So train operators have a, I forget the name of it, but they're basically like a point system for rule violations and safety violations where they're given points, and points fall off after so many years, or kind of like good behavior. Not to poke fun at it, but it's like a system like that for train operators. I do not know what supervisors fall under, if they have the same type of point system.
So independent of adopting this report, I'm wondering if it would make sense for us to share a statement of concern about having appropriately tailored discipline to safety related violations for supervisory personnel. That might be something we could share with Metro's management about our review of this particular circumstance.
Understood. And like I mentioned earlier, we've had events where Metro Rail has demoted a supervisor, and that individual had to go back to being, station manager. And it was mostly because they lied during the interview and about the event. So that's why I brought up the whole consistency thing here, because we have a hard time seeing it, because we've seen other events where people have made, certain claims that weren't true, once we kind of investigate everything, and Metro Rail handled that appropriately. So it's a little bit different. So yeah, just consistency is an issue I think that we're noticing.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush. I mean, certainly there's a balance, and I know they've been trying to work on a just culture type environment, and people are human. You don't want to be overly punitive, but certainly, and those of us who've been out there have seen it before, right? And I've seen it on transit, unfortunately, all too often, versus, let's say, heavy rail or for FRA regulated railroads, where there's independent oversight of their actions in individual liabilities and fines that they can receive outside of just their organization. So I don't want to paint everything in with a broad brush, but certainly this type of situation is not new, and it certainly underscores this issue with safety culture and finding a way to strike that balance where you can have an environment where workers are free and feel comfortable noting issues that they see or mistakes so that they can be corrected, versus personnel who are deliberately being dishonest or skirting rules, especially if they're in a position of authority. It's important to get that right balance and send the right message. And again, we're probably not in a position, certainly in this case, this is just a good forum to have that discussion, because it does need to be discussed.
So I certainly believe that we can, again, pursue the report as is presented for the investigative piece of it, but we can communicate separately with Metro Rail that addresses the questions about the disciplinary process and any standards that were used, as well as then to address our concern in light of that and seek some more information to then bring back to the commissioners and decide if you want to proceed further based upon that additional information.
Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh, for that suggestion. I could go with that. That would mean separating this from the group vote, I think, and treating this one separately. Is that right?
Not necessarily. I mean, again, I see them as two different processes. I think the report is still the report is presented, and we will supplement the work of the report with this other avenue of looking and understanding the discipline, and then any other action that the board would want to take related to that follow-on action.
Okay, that works for me. Are there any thoughts from any of the other commissioners?
I think that's a reasonable way forward. I think the report is a report, but I think if we get our message across about how appropriate reactions to some of these incidents are necessary, I think we make our point there and start a different discussion that's more broader and impacts, issues beyond this particular accident investigation.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Lobby. Any other comments before we move to the last report? Okay, thank you. Mr. Quigley, would you please present the final report?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0249 relates to a serious injury at McLean Station on March 4th, 2023. The Metro Rail rider got off a Silver Line train, walked beyond the end of the platform, then deliberately jumped from the elevated tracks. Another rider reported this, including reporting to Fairfax County 911 and the station manager. The station manager did not follow Metro Rail reporting procedures that require the station manager to relay this information to personnel at what is now referred to as the Metro Rail Integrated Command and Control Center. The fire liaison officer in the Rail Operations Control Center heard the Fairfax County response on fire department radio frequencies and gathered more information. The station manager later said they did not report the event because the injured person was outside the station. Metro Rail re-instructed the station manager on reporting procedures. Thank you. That completes today's investigation report presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Quigley?
I have a question, Chair Hart. Mr. Quigley, this is an interesting accident also where the individual actually jumped from Metro Rail property onto public property somewhere else. Is there really a requirement to report an accident or something that happens off property? I mean, what would trigger the need to report this?
Just notifying, 911. I think since the station manager was notified in this event, I don't think there was any type of delay in notification to emergency personnel since there was an additional rider there who kind of observed everything and made those phone calls. But normally,
how did they even know the individual was injured? He left the property. How did anybody know to dial 911?
I would just assume because of the height of the platform. I mean, McLean is elevated, so they basically jumped from an elevated structure straight down into public property, or around the tracks and station there in Virginia. It's quite a fall. So, yeah.
Okay, so the station manager probably should have reported it just based on the height of the right of way.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobby. Any other questions for Mr. Quigley? So let me understand, Ms. Silba, if we did a vote on the three and then wanted to express our view on the treatment of the one that we spoke about, does that require 2 votes, or is that just 1 vote and then a note on the side, or how does that work?
Yes, I would suggest just the singular vote for the reports. And we will note in the minutes, as well as understanding moving forward, that the staff will work on communication with Metro Rail related to that one investigation, particularly to gather more information about the disciplinary process. Okay, thank you. So do all the commissioners understand that process enough to take this to a vote at this point? Okay, is there a motion to adopt the 3 investigation reports that have just been presented? Whiskey 0248, 0249, and 0250. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Commissioner Lobby, is there a second? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Farrar-Dyke. All those in favor? Has it been moved and seconded? All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay.
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 Any opposed? Please raise your hand and say nay. So Chair, the vote is unanimous, 5-0 to adopt all 3 of these investigative reports. Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh, and provide in whatever the process would be for having that additional communication with staff to staff.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. We will now move on to resolutions and other actions. Today, we are considering the annual independent financial audit for WMSC fiscal year 2023. That fiscal year covered July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. I would like to thank Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke for her role in this process, along with the Finance and Operations Committee. And I would like to thank our staff for their hard work, both on an everyday basis to ensure that we are meeting all requirements, and as part of the audit process to provide the necessary information and documentation. We are proud of our staff for carrying out their work in such a professional and efficient manner, and for yet another clean audit. Commissioners have had a chance to review the audit and associated report. Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. First, I would like to recognize our newest member of the Finance and Operations Committee, Commissioner Rouse. He fills the vacancy left by former Commissioner Rush's departure. Commissioner Rouse, I appreciate you agreeing to serve in this role and appreciate your work on behalf of the WMSC. As noted, Chair Hart, the Finance and Operations Committee has engaged with the independent financial auditors. The Finance and Operations Committee, along with several other commissioners, received a briefing from the independent auditors last week, and all commissioners met with the auditors earlier today. We're very proud of our staff and our commissioners for this audit that includes an unmodified or clean opinion on the WMSC's financial statements through the end of our fiscal year last June, that the statements are fairly presented in conformance with generally accepted accounting principles. The auditors concluded that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the WMSC. This annual audit is required by the WMSC Compact, and upon adoption will be transmitted by staff as required by the Compact. The Finance and Operations Committee provided oversight of this independent work and recommends adoption of the audit report.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke. Are there any questions or any discussion from any of the commissioners for Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to adopt Resolution R 2023-08 to approve this independent audit? Is there a motion to adopt that resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Conklin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second to Commissioner Laube. Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Thank you. So the vote again is 5-0. So the motion to adopt the independent audit report passes.
Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Is there any other business that the commissioners would like to address today?
Chair Hart.
Yes, please, Commissioner Laube.
I just want to thank Governor Youngkin for appointing me as a full commissioner for the Washington Metro Safety Commission. And I want to thank the commissioners for appointing me as vice chairman. And since this is our last meeting of 2023, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday and happy New Year.
Well, thank you. And I would like to second your thanking Governor Youngkin for appointing you and the commissioners for electing you. I think in all cases, they will be well served by that decision.
Thank you.
Any other comments from any other commissioners? Hearing none, that completes our meeting for today. As a reminder, you can always report any concerns, any safety concerns through our website, wmsc.gov, through our social media channels, or by email. I'd like to thank Ms. Samarasinha for filling in for Dr. Meyer today. And I would also like to thank Ms. Samarasinha and the WMSC staff for all of their hard work to continuously improve the safety of Metro Rail, as well as for their presentations for this meeting. I would like to thank the commissioners for being so engaged in the process. And in this meeting, I would like to also thank Commissioner Laube for being elected Vice Chairman of the WMSC. Finally, I'd like to thank the members of the public who attended this meeting. We expect to hold our next public meeting on January 23rd, 2023. We appreciate your joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Hearing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.